Ladies and gentlemen, this is El Cochino, Tom Lawler, and I'd like to welcome you to the podcast that puts the lotion on its own skin, LuchaWorld. Bitchin'.
Welcome everyone to LuchaWorld Podcast episode number 110. This week, we'll talk a little bit about Verano de Escandalo, AAA's most recent big show. Had a couple of good matches and a lot of matches that you probably could just forget about. There was actually a really great match prior to that, about a week prior, between Hijo Vikingo and Laredo Kid. We'll talk about Copa Dinastia and a couple of new, a little bit of news from CMLL that happened over the past couple of days. Liger's farewell is finally happening in Mexico, and there's actually another title that was vacated in CMLL there will be a new champion crowned within, I think, a week. And also a new promotion has started up in Mexico. That's right. Nacion Lucha Libre has finally been, Alberto's latest project has been announced. And it started off with a bang, much like every other new promotion that comes up in Mexico. This one had the press conference, some big announcements, and then about maybe like 2 days later, actually during that show, people were wondering what was going to happen because the lineups were a little bit strange. And later on, we found out that those lineups would eventually have to change, and they actually released a new lineup. So we'll talk about that as well as AAA coming to Los Angeles, California, and a lot of lucha coming to Los Angeles, California. So we'll talk about that as well. But first, we will talk about Verano de Escandalo. A week prior to Verano de Escandalo, AAA had this show in Monterrey. On that show, there was this really great match between Laredo Kid and Hijo del Vikingo. Laredo Kid won the match to retain the AAA World Cruiserweight title. Amazing match. Definitely one of the Match of the Year candidates for this year. And it got a lot of rave reviews. A lot of people talked about it. It got brought up by Dave Meltzer. A lot of people started asking where they could see it. And, people actually, I think there were a couple of people who got copies of it from Twitch, from AAA site, and maybe posted it separately. I don't know what happened, but there was a lot of people who were watching it off of Twitch, off of AAA's Twitch channels. But definitely that was an amazing match. If you have not seen it, it happened on June 9th. In Arena Coliseo Monterrey. It was a really great match. So you had that match, and there was, I think, there was a lot of buzz for AAA because of that match. And, the following week, AAA had two shows. I don't know why they came up with two shows over a weekend. Well, honestly, I don't think it really matters, because now if they televise it, you could watch it televised and it'll just flow in that order. But I mean, if you're going to watch it while it's streaming live, you could just watch it back to back. Or even, honestly, the show prior to that, you probably didn't have to worry about watching, because it kind of had a lineup that wasn't, it didn't look that great, but it ended up being a pretty good show. I didn't watch the last two matches, but I thought it was an okay show. But Verano de Escandalo, I kind of thought, leaning into that show from the Hijo Vikingo Laredo Kid buzz, I was hoping they would actually change the lineup a little bit to at least do something where they could feature those two. And they really didn't. They just basically kept the same lineup. I mean, I don't even know how this happened. AAA constantly changes their lineups, not just like their regular shows, but actually on even like their big shows, they'll actually make a couple of changes. And this time, this might have been the first show that I can remember. I can actually remember that not one single thing changed. It's amazing that happened. It's a rarity, and I thought the show itself was a bit of a disappointment, honestly. I don't think it was as good as I think a lot of people were hoping for it to be, because I think a lot of people were holding out hope that they would make a few changes. There was a lot of mixed. I don't know, like I thought there was a lot of involvement of AAA's kind of gotten into this whole mixed intergender matches, and I think they're kind of like trying to add a lot of that with La Hiedra and the Daga, Tessa versus Taya Laredo Kid feud. So they kind of like They're not just doing one match half featuring that. Well, and then Fabi versus Hijo de Tirantes. So you're basically getting a lot of more of that sort of matches. And I kind of thought that was what kind of like hurt the show, because you didn't have a single standout. I mean, even like the tag match that they had between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks, I kind of thought that that was something that we had just... A lot of people who actually watch these shows have already seen that a month prior, because they watched AEW, or they actually, they were expecting a little bit more out of it. And, it was a good match, but I think they were expecting that there would be a little more besides that one match on this show. The undercard, I thought, had a lot of matches that weren't, they didn't really click, and they didn't deliver what I think a lot of people were expecting. The opener, also, that was the other thing, that there was, during the opener especially, there was a lot of technical difficulties with the video. I heard some of the people who watched it on the English feed on Twitch, they didn't have as many issues as the people watching on the Spanish feed. That kind of was an issue for those of us watching, because especially the opener, because the opener, there were a lot of points during the match where it would pixelate, and then all of a sudden, like, you would have somebody like doing some sort of move, and then all of a sudden you just see the person going for the pin. So you didn't really get anything. You weren't really getting the full effect of the match. The little that I saw, it looked pretty good. I wish they could have a version that was a little cleaner. I'm sure that's the TV version will probably be a lot cleaner. Unfortunately, a couple weeks later, at that point, who's going to want to watch it? Those of you who maybe didn't watch it and are willing to wait to watch it might be the ones that actually will enjoy that. Whereas, unfortunately, if you're listening to this and I'm talking about this show, you're probably wondering why I was so disappointed in the match. Although I did say it was good. Other people were kind of they said that because of how bad the technical difficulties were, they couldn't really judge it. And I totally understand that. But anyways, Kira ended up winning the AAA Reina de Reinas title in an opening match, which I thought was a little bit weird. That was the other thing. I kind of was hoping that AAA would open with their usual really crazy opening match, and they didn't do that. Also, you're kind of seeing a lot of those guys who were part of that AAA run where they had crazy openers. They're kind of working a lot more independence. So now they're kind of like starting to lose that. Although they still get it in the Tijuana, Mexicali area, because they'll bring in those guys for those shows. But this match I thought was pretty good. Like I said, technical difficulties aside, I was surprised Kira won, just because it kind of seemed like so out of nowhere for this show, being that it was also in the opener. And it does end Lady Shani's very underwhelming run as the AAA Reina de Reinas champion. I don't think it was so much her fault, although her performances also were kind of underwhelming. But every time she was in a match with Fabi, there was always Hijo de Tirantes interference. Then the other matches never really clicked. She always had something always came up in her matches that really never really worked out for her, and she kind of never looked that great. It's funny because I kind of thought this weekend that she probably had the best performances that I had seen, because she was actually working she actually was adding a little more submission holds to her moveset. So I don't know, maybe she got to show it off a little more this weekend, whereas other times she never really got to show it. And, it was a little bit underwhelming, her title run. Hopefully she'll get another opportunity, but at the same time, it being AAA, you don't really expect a lot out of these matches. After that, you had Fabi Apache beating Hijo de Tirantes, and that match was horrible. I take back anything I said about maybe Hijo de Tirantes being a better wrestler than a referee. Turned out I was wrong. He's a way worse wrestler than he is a referee. He's bad at both. I don't think he's bad at both, because I think as a referee he can actually maybe be passable. But the way he's, his character is built as a heel referee, it doesn't matter. He could be a good referee or a bad referee. He's still going to be doing the same stuff that he does, the crap that no one really likes in that AAA, storyline. The whole concept of the heel ref just doesn't work for a lot of people. And I thought that match was disappointing. Although I do think they did a good job of having Chica Tormenta being involved, and she kind of did a little bit more of making it look slightly better on Hijo de Tirantes' end. Fabi actually looked good at certain points, but it's just, you don't really expect much out of those matches. That was followed by an even worse match. Sammy Guevara and Australian Suicide beating Mamba and Maximo. That match was horrible. Don't watch it. Actually, the finish was really good. I will say the finish was really good. But the entire match went really long. I wish I could take back all that time I wasted watching that match. It was really bad. I think Sammy and Australian Suicide can offer a little more. I think Maximo's in that La Mascara mode where he's pretty much mailed it in. He's not that good now. He had a really good run in CML like for about 3 or 4 years. And now he's kind of regressed again to just being, more of a comedy character. After that match, you kind of start getting a little bit of a pick-me-up as Laredo Kid and Taya beat Daga and Tessa Blanchard. I didn't think it was that great of a match, but I thought it was after following those 2 previous matches, it was way better than those 2 matches. I kind of expected. I do think I expected a little more out of this match just because of the people involved, and Daga and Laredo Kid are really good. And a lot of people are gonna say, well, maybe Taya and Tessa brought it down, but I don't even think that. I just think the match was this show was just really bad at this point, and it just was hard for that to get me more interested in this show. I do think that if you separate both parts of this match and have a Daga versus Laredo Kid singles match, and they actually had one the previous night, so they can actually have a good match on their own, and I think Tessa and Taya could probably have a good match in AAA if given an opportunity. But again, a lot of times with the women, there's always a lot of interference and stuff like that. So, this match also had a really weird finish too. So, but it was still a lot better than the previous matches. What followed after that match was even worse. A lot of people some people liked this match, but I just didn't really like it. Puma King, Aerostar, and Pagano beat Chessman, Monster Clown, and Killer Cross. Scarlett Bordeaux was accompanying Killer Cross in this match. She got involved a lot, helping Killer Cross against Puma King, especially at the end of the closing minutes and at the end and the post-match attack. She got involved a lot. This match is probably going to be remembered by most as being the match where Aerostar did a dive off of the lighting rig, and he landed in a way where the guy, I think it was Monster Clown, caught part of him, because Monster Clown and I think Chessman were together to catch him. They still needed a third person to catch him, or at least the entire group of guys to catch him, because that did not look safe at all. And what ended up happening was Chessman was a little too far to the left, and Aerostar went a little too to the right, and Monster ended up just grabbing his legs, and you could see his shoulder and his part of his upper body kind of hit the floor. So it looked really bad. Aerostar afterwards said that he planned on perfecting that dive. And I don't know if it's a dive. I call it more of a drop, because it did not look like a dive. He said he's going to perfect it. Honestly, I told him it was a bad idea. He shouldn't do it. He said he's going to do it anyways. He's a grown-ass man. Do whatever you want. It's your life. I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I just won't be tuning in when you decide to do that. If you want to do something stupid in the ring, by all means do it, but don't expect me to watch it. After that, we had the Hijo de Vikingo teaming up with Mysticis Jr. and La Parca versus Rey Escorpion, Tejano Jr. and La Hiedra. This match, I think this also was a match that had a lot of botches in it, with Hijo de Vikingo surprisingly missing like a rope spot, which is weird because I think the same spot Templario missed in the following on the Friday show for CML, the most recent Friday show. He also kind of did something off the ropes, and he also kind of slipped off of them. And those two guys they very rarely make mistakes in the ring, so it's always weird when you see that happen to them. And Hijo de Vikingo had that happen, and then he also had something else where it didn't go as well. Mysticis Jr. was the one that kind of he did a dive and nearly, I think Rey Escorpion didn't catch him properly, so he also kind of looked like he got hit pretty hard. But this match was another match that I thought wasn't very good. Unfortunately, it was just not. It wasn't that interesting. I think this is something that I think where AAA should have just gone with something as like Hijo de Vikingo. They should have just switched this all around, had Hijo de Vikingo versus somebody else. Maybe even do a rematch with Laredo Kid and just switch everything around. Because this match was, I thought La Hiedra. I do think the Mercenarios, they wore matching outfits, and I do think that they actually are a far better combination now without La Máscara. I think they kind of have a better. They come across better as a group without him, with Rey Escorpion, Tejano Jr., La Hiedra, and Taurus. I do think they kind of come across better together. The 7th match on the show, I think the show went I think it went over 3 hours, had the Lucha Brothers beating the Young Bucks. This was the best match on the show. It wasn't even close. I think a lot of people were kind of expecting a little bit more of like surprises, because I think at one point the previous night, they had mentioned Cody might be at the Verano de Escandalo show. He wasn't there. He'd never showed up. And I think there were a lot of people just expected a little bit more, especially with AAA. You kind of expect a little bit more of something that would go on. You wouldn't expect something that was relatively clean, although they did have Hijo de Tirantes involved in the match. And then they had him like knocked out and had another referee get involved. But they did a good job of getting the Young Bucks to come across as heels this time around. And the crowd did react to him as Rudos. And I thought this was a really good match. Phoenix hit this really crazy tope where he nearly knocked out the entire couple of rows of people. That was fun to watch. Penta lost his... At one point, the Young Bucks took Penta's mask off. And he actually disappeared for a couple of minutes, like I think for about a minute or so, looking for his mask to, close out the match. But I thought it was a really good match. I think there were a lot of people who said the AEW match the previous month was a little bit was better. I did not watch that match, but I thought this was way better than the Rey de Reyes match, just because they were given a lot more time, and the crowd actually reacted to the Young Bucks as people that they were familiar with. They did a good job of finally setting that up, and I do think this is something that I'm pretty sure this is probably going to, that wasn't the last match that they're going to have. Obviously, being in AEW, they're going to have several matches over the years, but if it lasts, like, for their television and stuff like that. But I would guess, I wouldn't be shocked if it happens, a rematch in Triple Mania would happen, just because I think AAA definitely wants AEW involvement on their shows. But like I said, I thought this was really the best match on the show. I think this match probably, if this show would have had at least something slightly better underneath, I think this would have been I would have considered this a good show. But like I said, the entire undercard wasn't that great. Very disappointing, but this match, definitely something people should go out of their way to watch. The main event, Dr. Wagner Jr. and Psycho Clown beating Taurus and Blue Demon Jr. Taurus and Psycho Clown worked their butts off and had a really good match. They did a lot of stuff that, you always know they're going to give a lot of effort, and they delivered on that end. Wagner Jr. and Blue Demon Jr., they basically went to the brawling, blood. That's what they're going to do. Mask ripped, a lot of blood, and that's what you expect. And I think that's what they gave the fans. I thought this was a slightly good main event. The other thing in this main event was, how can you not enjoy seeing Rey Wagner and his, Rey Wagner, I think we all know that ever since Rey Wagner dropped his mask, he's become a fashion icon in Lucha Libre. And Rey Wagner, he's done something that I think has already increased the interest in Triple Mania, especially in that mask versus hair match that he's going to have with Blue Demon Jr. Initially, a lot of people had their doubts about this being a big match, but Rey Wagner did something incredible, and I think a lot of people probably caught it for the first time during this weekend, because maybe they weren't paying a lot of attention to Rey Wagner for the past month. But Rey Wagner now has hair extensions and he has ridiculously long hair. It is awesome. It is hilarious. A lot of wrestling reporters, journalists, insiders, they do a lot of research. Historians, researchers, whatever you want to call them, they do a lot of research on a lot of things, about attendance, drawing ability, wrestlers' careers. You got Bix uncovering legal issues over the years within wrestling, lawsuits, whatnot. And then you have me. What do I like to research? Well, you all already know my number one research thing is obviously getting to know las Diosas del Ring from CMLL. I am perhaps the number one expert in all things CMLL Diosas del Ring. Going back to when they first started, now I probably forgot most of everything that has to do with them. But the other thing I researched recently was Rey Wagner's hair extensions. That's right. I took time out of my busy schedule to do a little research on Rey Wagner's hair extensions, and I uncovered that he started growing his hair back in, I think, late May. Might have been May 25th or so when he first showed up with hair extensions. It was on a AAA show, but he might have been on indie shows with those hair extensions. Prior to that time period, he did not have hair extensions. So you're talking about Rey Wagner at some point in May realizing that he had to have long hair to make more people want to watch that mask versus hair match against Blue Demon Jr. at Triple Mania. And do I think more people are buying tickets to see that? Of course they are. I mean, you just have to look at this hair. This hair is amazing. Every couple of minutes in this match, Rey Wagner's hair would get in front of his face, and he had to remove it so he could continue to see what was going on in matches. And I thought that looked amazing. Kind of reminded me of I don't know how many of you remember Fabio from those old commercials? How he would they would do the slow-mo and his hair would go from one side to the other, or he would remove it from covering up his face. That kind of was what Rey Wagner was doing in this match, and I thought that was amazing. Add in the blood of Blue Demon Jr. and Rey Wagner and the work rate of Psycho Clown and Taurus, and this match was good. And I thought that was definitely something I look forward to with Dr. Wagner Jr. and Blue Demon Jr. They piqued my interest for Triple Mania. I think now I could sit through 5 hours of Triple Mania. If you would have asked me prior to Verano de Escandalo if I could sit through watching Triple Mania live streamed for 5 hours, I would have said, hell no. You can't trick me again. Although I've been tricked for the past 5 years. I think it might be that time. I'm sure you guys recall previous podcasts where Kurt Brown has mentioned how I missed going to a live show to watch Triple Mania once. And I think twice, actually. I think once was for the Legend show, and then once was for Superboy's birthday party wrestling show or something. And then one time I watched Triple Mania thinking I could actually sit through it because we were going to do two podcasts the following day, and it ended up being like I think at that point we kind of decided we would never do that again. Do two Lucha podcasts covering Triple Mania. We did it for Lucha Talk and we did it for LuchaWorld, and that was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made, and we refused to ever do that again. And I actually watched 5 hours of those shows. I said at that time I would never do it again, but like I said, Rey Wagner's hair may have convinced me to watch Triple Mania live again. So I don't know, that's going to be a tough one. Stay tuned. That's coming up in August. There's a lot going on also with AAA. Like I said, they had that Cancun show the previous day. That show was, if you're going to watch it on Twitch or you're going to watch it on when it gets posted to YouTube, there were a couple of, I thought the undercard was pretty good. I didn't watch the last two matches just because there's only so much AAA I could watch over a weekend. And honestly, it's not just AAA. There's only so much wrestling I could watch over a weekend. And nowadays I've been watching a lot of old school wrestling also. So, I gotta schedule this stuff or time how much I can watch all this stuff. But I thought that show was okay. AAA made an announcement. This past week they held a press conference in Los Angeles. I don't think anybody actually knew about this besides the media outlets that they sent press releases to or sent invitations to. They did not. I don't think they sent anything to any wrestling people, because a lot of the people who were announcing or mentioning the press conference were people that were from the entertainment industry. It's like blogs that cover entertainment. I think one of the blogs that covered Lucha Underground when I went to the press tour also covered it. But they held the press conference at the Forum to announce that AAA's LA show will be held on October 13th at the Forum. They also announced pretty much the same group of wrestlers that were announced for the Madison Square Garden show in New York in September. They pretty much announced the same group of wrestlers. We still don't know if how many of those guys have visas to work the show. They list Hijo del Vikingo. I think everybody's waiting for Hijo del Vikingo to get his visa. There's currently 2 wrestlers that everybody is waiting for to get their visas from Mexico. Hijo del Vikingo and Aramis right now are the 2 guys, and both guys don't seem to ever have any. They keep saying they're going to get them at some point, and it has not happened yet. And I'm sure when it does, those guys will be in heavy demand. There's only so many guys that are available on the indie scene, especially with guys with the start of AEW and guys having to go, commit to that promotion. And, so many guys going to signing with WWE and all the other, like the brands that they have. There needs to be some new blood within the independent scene. And I think that's where a lot of the promoters are looking to get their guys. A couple of guys from Mexico, adding Aramis and Hijo del Vikingo would be amazing. And I do think they'll end up coming at some point. But yeah, that LA show, tickets already went on sale this past Friday, June 21st. I don't know. I'm undecided whether I'm going to go or not. I kind of need to know the lineup just because I'm not really into going to big events. I kind of like going to indie shows more than anything. Just because it's so much easier to get interviews, and like a lot, you get to hang out with your friends, talk to people. Whereas if you're going to a big event, you might not even see them. So the other news that came up recently, Alberto El Patron and a group of investors announced the formation of Nacion Lucha Libre, with their first show starting on July 11th. They already announced that they have a TV deal with Imagen TV. They also announced their first card that same day at the press conference. They were talking about how this was going to be a big show and everything. So when they announced their first lineup, their first show, they actually announced that Tinieblas and Dos Caras would be honored on that show. But the other big, which is funny because, everybody, as soon as they saw the lineup, they kind of felt that it was going to be like a full show. Tinieblas Jr.'s promotion. So it kind of just came across like that. So when they announced the lineup, they had a lot of guys who were working with AAA. They're either under contract with AAA or they're independent guys who are currently wrestling in AAA. And a lot of those guys currently can't work for promotions that have TV in Mexico. So that's why you don't see like the Lucha Brothers on CML shows anymore, because now that AAA's on Azteca TV and CML's on Televisa, they can't really like be on those shows. So they actually had announced Rey Wagner, Pentalcero M, Ray Phoenix, Laredo Kid, Black Taurus, Puma King, Daga, Flamita. They announced all these guys being on the show, and I think by the next day, they had already announced that they were already told that some of those guys could not be used for that show. The Wrestling Observer newsletter mentioned that a lot of those guys were not told when they agreed to work that show that was going to be on that would be televised. So they kind of felt that they were lied to. Had they known that it was going to be televised, they probably would have never agreed to do the show, just because they understood what the deal was with AAA. And so they all ended up getting pulled off the show. And so the lineup ended up getting a new, like, they pretty much got rid of all those guys, and they basically added Rey Horace versus Bandito, and LA Park is now added onto the show, as well as his sons, Hijo de LA Park and LA Park Jr., and I think they also have a Luchador Sorpresa scheduled for that. I would not be shocked if it's, well, it's got to be somebody from America that might be on that. I don't know, it could be a Luchador, because it's Chavo Guerrero Jr. and the Mecha Wolf versus Matt Sydal and the Luchador Sorpresa. I think it's probably going to be an American guy. But the card kind of already looks like it's already diminished, just because the undercard kind of got weakened with all the guys who were pulled. They actually have Flamita on the card, and I don't even think Flamita's going to be in Mexico at that point, because he's still on the Dragon Gate tour. I don't know how long. I think that runs through that time period also. He might be out of that by that point. But they all got pulled off the show, so already off to a bad start for Alberto. I kind of think it just kind of feels like every single other promotion that's kind of been a new promotion that's coming up. They come up and they kind of talk about all these things they're going to do and how different they are going to be from other promotions. Then they kind of announce a lineup that's very similar to almost all those promotions that fell apart. In fact, this lineup kind of looks a lot like those full shows that I think they were the full affiliate shows that from like last year with Alberto El Patron and Jack Swagger. Even like some of the crash shows that worked outside of Tijuana had a vibe similar to this with I wouldn't be shocked if Carlito's on this card too. So like with MVP and Apollo and Carlito and all those guys, that's kind of what these shows feel like. I don't know how long. I think everybody's kind of giving it a few months for this to last. I kind of agree. It probably will. I don't give it more than a year to survive. I would say 3 to 6 months, because I don't know if that's going to draw. Alberto's last shows where he's worked as an independent didn't draw well, and I'm not sure. I think unless LA Park's drawing ability, this is going to truly test LA Park's drawing ability. If they're able to draw well, I think he's going to take some of the credit, and he's probably going to try to get more money out of this group. And who knows, they're probably going to have to pay it because if he's not on the show, there is no chance they're going to draw well. Yeah, that show, I don't know. Hopefully the works well, but I'm not holding my breath for this one. Some CMLL news. Metallico debuted this past week as a referee in CMLL, and he's now changed his name to Tigre Infante, an homage to his, Tigre Metallico name from prior to changing it to Metallico, and also to Pedro Infante. So he's combined those two together, and now he's a referee as Tigre Infante. He's probably already the best referee in the promotion, or the second best, who knows. That's something that was going to happen at some point. They made it seem like the plan wasn't like official until after the retirement match, but I think this was something that was planned way ahead. As soon as Tirantes quit CMLL, I'm guessing they had already planned on moving on to having somebody join the referee's role, and Metallico's at that age where he probably had to consider a career change. And I think this probably will get him more bookings too, so it might actually benefit him. The other news from this past week from CMLL was Dragon Lee vacating the CMLL lightweight title. They actually called it the super lightweight title, which was the old name that the title was known for as. And they announced the Torneo Cibernetico with the final two heading to a title match the following week. And that Torneo Cibernetico happened. The guys who were in it were Flyer, El Audaz, Super Astro Jr., Hijo del Villano Tercero, Star Jr., Electrico, Kowato-san, Príncipe Diamante, Halcón Suriano Jr., and Sonic. I think right away a lot of people, you could pretty much eliminate like about half of the guys in this. And what ended up happening was Audaz and Kowato-san reached the final. I think that might actually be a good match. Kowato-san has actually looked a little better of late. He's doing a little more. He kind of seems like a little more comfortable in the matches he's been having. He's also been working a lot better talent. He's not in there with like he's still in. I'm sure he's still in there with Scrubs during the weekend shows and the shows that we don't really watch. But of late on Friday shows, he's been in there with better, better talent around him as partners and as opposition. And he's gonna get Audaz, and I think that should be a good match. I think this was a good thing for CML to do. Dragon Lee wasn't gonna drop the title to any of these guys. It didn't really benefit him. And at the same time, none of these guys, other than really Aldaz, I don't know if any of these other guys would have actually benefited from beating Dragon Lee. I think Aldaz would have I think he could have skyrocketed to, semi-main event spot. Probably started getting that opportunity to be the next guy who got a big push as a technical. But the other guys, I don't think had much. I mean, there's guys in this that I think are talented. Like, I think Halcon Suriano Jr. is amazing, and Super Astro Jr. is too. Electrico is talented, but, I mean, I don't think you would expect them to be guys who suddenly would beat Dragon Lee. Even Hijo Viano Tercero, I don't think you could possibly, move him that quickly into, beating a guy like that. He's probably somebody that could do it at some point, but right now, I mean, he's not even at the level. Like, his brother is way better than him right now. And, I think this match, I think the only thing I didn't like about this Torneo Cibernéticos was that they only had 2 Rudos in this. It kind of it didn't seem like the odds were fair. They could have thrown in Disturbio and Virus just to make it a little bit of a stronger Torneo Cibernético because they are lightweights. And I think it would have made it a little bit more interesting. I don't know how. I'm sure it's a good match, and I would be interested in watching it because it's got a lot of guys that are pretty good. And I'm sure the final might be just as good. I hope Aldaz wins, but I have a feeling Kawato-san's going to be the one that ends up winning. Just because I think that might be the plan to, I could see him winning. And because there's 8 technicals that were in this match, I could see him getting title defenses against a couple of those guys as challengers. And then eventually maybe Aldaz winning it. And then you kind of switch over to Aldaz versus Hijo Viano Tercero as the lightweight program at some point. Copa Dinastia ended. Chavez brothers beat Rush and Bestia del Ring in the final. Chavez brothers were good. The match wasn't that good. It's good to see the Chavez brothers kind of getting this cool push, and I thought they looked good in the match. What really was the best match on this entire tournament was the previous week. Chavez brothers worked against the Dragon Lee and Mystico, the Munoz brothers, and that match was great. I actually think that would be something that CML should go to at some point again, just because I thought those guys were awesome going up against each other. I don't know why CML, they have Mystico. They should probably do a little more with him. I know a lot of people don't think he's that great of a worker, but I think they should really do a lot more than they actually do with him, especially just to change and especially in the tag team, like with him teaming up with Dragon Lee. I think that would be perfect. I think just to kill the repetitiveness of CMLL's shows, I think is that would be reason enough to have Mystico and Dragon Lee as a tag team and have them be featured in tag team matches. I think CMLL should do a lot more tag team matches and not just have them be like the undercard tag match and or during tag team tournaments. They should actually do something with the tag titles and do it a little more frequently and not bury it and actually come up with good tag teams. They dropped the ball a couple years ago when they had a lot more talent and had more possibilities of tag teams. And right now they have a good little mix of guys that they could do a tag team division that makes sense with Gran Guerrero Euphoria as a tag team, the Chavez brothers, Dragon Lee and Mystico, Terrible and Rush. They also could always go back to the Carbonario Hechicero tag team that was really awesome. From about what was it last year that they worked as a tag team. I think that's something they should really do. Chavez brothers are really good. I do hope they get a title match with Gran Guerrero Euphoria. The other thing I thought it was interesting that they had this show, and I kind of thought because it was a Copa Dinastia final that they might actually do a little more, because if you recall, CML said they were going to do a monthly big show, and this I thought would have been the show where they could have had like a title match underneath with the Copa Dinastia or some other big match, and they didn't do it, so it ended up just being another regular Friday show. They didn't really hype it as a big deal other than the Copa Dinastia final. And I think they already forgot about the big events every month. And that's CMLL for you. You know, they kind of do this sort of thing and it kind of just falls apart the following week. The following day, really. I mean, Austin Theory made his debut in CMLL. He came in through the Crash relationship. I thought he looked okay. He didn't look that great. He was not as good as... He did not have the performance, the standout performance that Mecha Wolf and Adam Brooks had. He seems like he's a good wrestler, but I don't think he fits Lucha. I think he's more of a guy who's kind of headed towards the WWE. And I don't even think he's even going to be back in CMLL again. So, you know, that was one of those random bring them one-shot deal type of situations for CMLL. There was a debut in CMLL that I'm actually kind of excited about. I think CMLL brought in a couple of guys from the Laguna area. They brought in, I think, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, the Chavez brothers mentioned that one of their cousins had moved in to Mexico City and started training in Arena Mexico, who wrestles as Redentor. He has started showing up on indie shows, but he's training in Arena Mexico. I would guess he would probably be in CML at some point. But he showed up, and another guy who actually made his way to CML also is Cigar Dania, who has actually been very good in the Torreon area. One of the Laguneros, Ultimo Guerrero, recommended him, so you already know he's going to get an opportunity. He's going to get an opportunity to fill out Maximo's spot as the Exotico on CMLL shows, which is something that they've actually been missing and they've kind of been wanting to fill. If you recall, a couple of years ago, they were going to fill it out with Demasiado, but Demasiado got hurt, and I think he was out for about 6 months to a year. And when he came back, he was not, I think he mentioned he was trying to get back in shape, and he never got another shot to be, we never heard back from him possibly coming back to CMLL, and he's actually pretty good too. But Dulce Gardenia I think he's talented, and I think he's somebody that he's way better than Maximo, so that's already a plus. He's a little bigger than I expected because they mentioned he was 6 feet tall, and I think he's probably more of a light heavyweight, or a welterweight. So he's already middleweight, welterweight, light heavyweight, kind of in that class. I thought he was a smallish welterweight at one point, but he kind of looks like he's probably heavier than a welterweight, but he might be in that middleweight, light heavyweight class. So I think he's probably going to be somebody that once he's kind of become a regular, I would not be shocked to see him getting a decent push in CMLL. He looks good also. I think he looked good in the highlights that I've seen of him, and he's already gotten a little bit of there's already been some mention of him, some positive feedback on him. The other news from CML is that they also announced that Jushin Thunder Liger would be having his farewell to CMLL in Arena Mexico, July 19th. The Lucha Libre Real promotion had actually mentioned that Liger would be at their show for the Expo Lucha or Expo Museo thing for July 20th, and they later revealed that they would also be in Arena Coliseo. But then that announcement was mentioned through the Lucha Libre Real group, but CML kind of isn't mentioning it. I'm sure they'll probably mention it at some point, but it probably wasn't something that they were planning on saying right now. They probably want to have everybody know that the farewell will be in Arena Mexico. That I think is being treated as a big deal. I would not be shocked if that was the big show for July. I don't know if they're going to announce it one of those shows where they're like, oh, big show, Jushin Liger's farewell, plus these, and stack the lineup. It could just be a regular Friday show with Liger being advertised as Liger's farewell to Arena Mexico. That's going to be a big deal. I mean, Liger, I hope the match they pick is something that's good. I think a lot of people were hoping that they have a mix of Liger maybe teaming up with I would actually kind of like it if it was Liger, Titan, and Dragon Lee versus Nero Casas, Carbonario, and somebody else who's a regular in New Japan, or somebody younger, but it'll probably end up being Ultimo Guerrero or somebody like that. But even that combination would be pretty good, would be excellent. I worry that it's just going to be one of those Legends type of matches where it's just like, Liger teaming up with Atlantis and Octagon versus Negro Casas. Who's the other legend that Ultimo Guerrero and Fuerza Guerrera or something like that? And I don't want that. I kind of want something a little bit with a couple of young guys so they could get a little bit of a rub from Liger's farewell. Plus, I think a lot of the guys from this generation, they see Liger kind of like what the previous generation saw Tiger Mask. So you kind of have a lot of the younger guys who kind of like, that's a guy who they consider a star to them, a legend. So it'd be kind of fun for them to be part of that. So that should be something that's going to be coming up. On the independent scene, I actually have indie news. The PAL Alliance that everybody was so excited about, that was formed just a few months ago, or what was it, last year or whatever. It's already fallen apart. Lucha Memes broke away from PAL. Apparently, Generación 21 might have also left. So they actually had a press conference. This press conference was also featuring Vampiro, who announced that he not only has the early stages of Alzheimer's, but also Parkinson's. He was actually booked to work an IWRG show in, I think, later this month, and it was it was on June 23rd, and he later, I guess they removed him from the match because he was unable to wrestle. But he still said in the press conference, he said he still planned to give it a shot. He's going to train and stuff. I don't know what he's thinking. That's crazy. Promoters would have to be crazy to even book him at this point if he's talking about, and that, early stages Alzheimer's and Parkinson's isn't the only stuff that he's saying is wrong with him. He's saying there's a lot of other stuff that's wrong with him. So if you follow his Facebook page, I think every single time he does a video, there's something other health issue that he's suffered through or is suffering through, and I don't know about that. It's crazy. The other thing from the PAL press conference, they announced the Guerreros Aztec Wrestling promotion from Chicago is the first U.S. group to join that alliance. I think they're somehow affiliated with the group that that's known as Galley in Chicago. The Cubs fan and I were trying to figure it out. Cubs fan, I think Cubs fan kind of figured out that they are affiliated. I kind of noticed that also. At first, I kind of thought maybe they're separate, but then once I went on their accounts and you look at the whole like the names and stuff like that, and then like they always hashtag each other, so it kind of seems like maybe it's just another combination of that group, another just like an affiliate, kind of like a brand split or something that they're trying to do. I don't know what they're trying. It's just one. It kind of feels like it's a brand split type of deal. So, but they were added. I would not be shocked if both groups even end up being added to that. They also mentioned that they're going to have affiliates or have people within or the Florida and Puerto Rico regions join the PAL Alliance. Who knows what groups that will be? They were going to hold a press conference next month to announce more of that. That's just really just more confusion to add to the whole alliance of the PAL. I know Mexa Wrestling's still in that, but yeah, it's one of those strange situations. Indie match to watch: Aramis versus Demonio Infernal from the June 19th PAL show. Great match. Watch it. Aramis is a star. He did an interview with Mas Lucha where he said that he planned on getting a visa to travel to the United States within 2-3 months. I think a lot of people, if you're really gonna go with the idea that that's gonna happen within 2-3 months, you should realize that this stuff works in Mexican time, and the odds of it happening within 2 or 3 months are probably at 50-50, maybe even less. I would say more likely give it a few months more, or maybe even like 2-3 years, because these guys take forever to get their visas. So don't hold your hopes for it to happen in time for any big event coming up in September or October on the indie scene. Look forward to it more likely later, maybe early next year or later on. I would be shocked if it happened earlier. Some big shows a lot of luchadors are coming to the United States. They've been coming a lot. I mean, we've been getting a lot of guys, but we're finally getting a couple of we're finally getting a lot of people coming in July. PWG's July 26th show has a trios match with Black Taurus making his debut for PWG. He'll be teaming up with Laredo Kid and Puma King versus Flamita, Bandito, and Rey Horus. That should be a good match. A lot of those guys have been coming into the United States. I think Taurus had already worked a few shows here locally for the last year or two. And the week prior to that, Baja Stars USA is running in Huntington Park, California. And they have Soberano Jr. and Rey Horus, Extreme Tiger on the show. And they also have La Mosca on it, which is kind of the bummer. They actually have a lot of... some of the undercard guys that you might see on the Crash. They're going to be on that show. I think Tiago and Unicornio, a couple other guys, and a lot of the local guys. I know Superboy's kids are going to be working that show. So that's a show to definitely check out if you can't make it to PWG. I would say every month you're probably going to see at least several luchadors show up on indie shows, just because a lot of those guys are starting to like travel a little more, especially the CMLL guys like Carbonario and Dragon Lee, Caristico, Rouge being in Ring of Honor, Bandito, the AAA guys, and so on. I think people are expecting a few of those other guys like that haven't been here, like Aramis, to start showing up, and I think that's going to be the next wave of guys. I think Aramis, Latigo, Ares is already like wrestling. He's somebody else that should actually be working more frequent in the US also. But yeah, that's about it for this week's show. Check out all the updates on LuchaWorld.com. Also, if you want to listen to some of the previous shows, LuchaWorld Podcast, you could check them out at the LuchaWorld. They're archived on the LuchaWorld Podbean account, luchaworld.podbean.com. You could find all the archives as well as some of the old Slam and Stan episodes, as well as a lot of interviews. It's also on iTunes. All of that stuff is on iTunes. I'll probably be adding more of that stuff down the road. So thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.